saw we're going to be talking about today is the compound miter saw. This is most often referred to as a chop saw out in the field or on the job site, specifically because it takes too long to say compound miter saw. The reason it's called a compound miter saw on this particular model is that it will rotate two different directions. This is called a miter cut when I rotate this direction, but this machine will also do a bevel cut. To do a bevel cut, I will tip the blade over this direction and I can do two different angles at the same time, which is why it's called compound angle. Some saws will have a dual action or a single action. This one is a single action in such that it will only tilt to this side. There are saws that have a double action or a dual, which will tilt to the opposite side as well. This saw is one of the smallest of the chop saws. This has a 7.5 inch blade. Another common chop saw size is a 10 inch in most shops, and also a 12 inch. There are other sizes, 15 and above, but the most common are the 7.5, the 10, and the 12 inch. This particular machine is a direct drive, and the direct drive means that the motor is connected directly to this blade. I'm going to point out a few safety features before we get a lot farther. First thing you'll notice is the blade guard. Blade guard will protect you as long as it is in an upright position. As soon as you push down on the machine, you will see that the blade guard backs away automatically. Another thing I'd like to point out is this fence or throat plate. This is pivotal with this machine. If this fence were not here, you cannot use this particular machine. Obviously we have a table here as well, and then we have a dust collection system back here. When I turn this on, the dust particles and most of the chips will fly out here to be sucked up by our dust collection system. Another safety feature on this machine is it has a thumb safety. If I try to turn the machine on, it will not turn on until I depress this thumb safety. Once I press this thumb safety, now I am able to turn this machine on. Another feature on this, safety feature on this, is the blade brake. If I was to turn this machine on and then let off of the trigger, the blade will come to a stop very fast, and that is because there is a blade brake installed on it, so that when I let off the trigger it will stop soon enough so that if I reach under to grab my board, which I shouldn't do, it theoretically won't cut me. The chop saw's principal use is for cutting across a board, or cross-cutting. It is not for cutting with the grain. If I was to cut with the grain, there's two things that will happen. One, it's not supported very much. If it is too close to the side, it will snag and try and pull my board in there. And two, this board has grain going this direction. That grain can pinch or expand. So when I cut down in here, if I was to cut down in here, that board may actually grab onto this blade and pinch at that point. This machine again is specifically for cutting across your material. Next thing we're going to talk about is how this machine works. There are angle adjustments that we can set this to for whatever angle we want to. To move the miter angle adjustment, we press this button down and then it allows it to move freely. If I let the button up and push it, it will stop at corresponding angles that are important to usual framing or crown molding. So 0 is one of the stops it will have. The next one is going to be at 15 degrees. Next one is at 22.5 degrees, and so on and so forth. To find 0, the best option is to not try and line it up with 0 exactly, but to stop a little bit back from 0 and then let it drop into place at that measurement. The next thing we can do is actually tighten this handle right here. If I tighten that handle, notice I'm not grabbing it like Rambo. I'm just very gently snugging that up. That will lock it into place. So now I can make those cuts repetitively over and over again without the machine moving. If I want to set it at a different mark, that is not on one of the stops, I can set it there too, but it's easy to move this back and forth afterwards, which is why you have that lock. If I want to set it at a different angle, I can tighten it there, and now it's rigid, and I can make my repetitive cuts at this point. At the rear of the saw, I have the handle to adjust my bevel gauge. At this point, all I need to do is loosen that, and then the machine is free to tip over. You can see at this point I have my increments on my angles to set the bevel at whatever place I want to. When I get to the correct adjustment, whatever I want, I need to simply retighten that. Notice I'm not using my full strength to tighten this lever. On some models, it's possible to loosen this too far and the handle will spin and fall off. So make sure you only loosen it as much as you need to align your proper adjustment on the angle. Always set your angle back to 0 when you're done, so that the next poor soul who comes by and tries to use this machine at 2 degrees because he didn't know you set it there, it doesn't have all his cuts off after that point. Another thing I want to show you at this point is I have the ability to stop the machine from sliding backwards and forwards if I want to. I can put, if I'm going to be making repetitive cuts, small cuts, and I don't need to move the machine all the way forward on its slide, I can tighten both handles at this point, and now the machine will only cut straight down. It will not travel the full length of the slide if I don't need it to.